call them my children, basically. A lot of them got to middle life and needed to change their strategy, and some didn't make it. But and then we put something else into it. Sort of like we had to do a corporate heart transplant, put a business into it to make sure that the shareholders would still benefit. Not everything works, but a majority of them did. And it's been basically between myself and my partner, Dan Walsh, we basically help a lot of companies, and that we find very, very interesting. I call it public venture capital.
And I would say it's kind of like you're the kid next door who happened to be a genius. I mean, it's valedictorian. There's only been 60 of them in the past 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty remarkable, right?
True. I mean, for the business school, it was, to get through the business school, I basically worked 40 hours a week while I was doing that too. I went to Rutgers undergraduate, same thing. I got straight A's. I didn't get any B's in any course throughout my whole college career. It's something that it sounds.
What's amazing though is you and I are talking. I'm a high school dropout, got an 8th grade diploma. I do have a Bachelor of Rhymes that I got when I graduated kindergarten. I actually have it still, But you're an academic, but it comes easy to you, What's funny is not funny. What's odd is the guy who just got shot. He was the president of or the CEO of.
United Health.
Yeah, United Health. He was a valedictorian, and the guy that killed him, he was a valedictorian.
Yeah, that's the story of that individual that shot the guy from United Health is amazing. One, I find it hard to believe he was an Italian, but he came from a really well-off family.
Yeah, they're worth $50 million for Portland.
Slightly different than where I grew up. But one of the problems when you're the scion of the wealthy is that usually the kids are a little screwed up.
Well, for instance, I have somebody who I know that became a friend who's very, very, very famous. Just very famous. Movies, everything, books. Okay. And they had 3 children, which are all fine and dandy today. The last one, who I loved and was my friend, he did not know what it was like to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that got involved.
That usually is the problem, because it leads to the wrong types of thoughts. It leads, unfortunately, to addictions and things like that.
Well, the greatest lawyer in the world was my friend Sir Lionel Lecoux, and he told me, he said, and I have validated this. If you take an egg and it's about to hatch, it's pecking through, mm-hmm. and if you help get that, let the chick out of the egg, it mostly will die, because it's by pecking that it builds up the strength to be able to live in this outer environment. So really, troubles and trials are really a blessing from the Lord above. If you think of it, Jesus was a man acquainted with many sorrows. Jesus, learned obedience by that which he suffered. Have you learned from the things where you've fallen?
Yes. You have to get back up. That's why basically Trump won the election, mainly because he avoided getting killed, thank God. But he got right back up and said fight, and that got him Musk. And that got him the majority of people.
Even the CEO of Facebook, he said from that point on, the guy was his hero.
That's right.
I mean, it's an amazing story. Now, you're involved in something because you ferret out some really great opportunities. And right now there's an opportunity with, you're working with a product that will help people's health.
Yes.
I got a friend of mine sitting in the other room right now. He says he's lost weight on this thing. Tell us some of the stories of what's going on and then what the product is.
Okay, so just a little background. Medicine and the whole healthcare industry always excited me when I followed. So the majority of companies I get involved with and helped found have been medical. I founded a company with the CEO of a company called Medicis Pharmaceutical, which eventually got sold out for almost like $1 billion back. I also helped Dr. Philip Frost, who was one of the wealthiest guys in Florida, when he started IVAX Labs. I actually gave him the company that he merged. The concept of creating another pharmaceutical company after he sold Key Pharmaceutical. Phil basically and I go way back, and I helped him raise the biggest bulk of his money in the early years when he was struggling to get the company off the ground. IVAX ended up being the largest generic drug company, sold itself out to Teva. Phil then ran Teva for a while. And Phil basically he's one of the biggest charitable people down in Miami. He's got a huge house on the island that everybody was there. He was there in Miami before all the people who found Miami in the last 5 years. But generally, when it comes to understanding healthcare, myself and my partner, we focus on interesting companies. And I would say that probably this company that I'm about to tell you about, because it happens to be a public company that happened to have this product in it. The CEO of the company, Mike Ferraro, the name of the company is called Cellevate Nutritional.
How do you spell it?
CELLEV, the number 8. Nutritional Inc.
Oh, so hold on. CELLE.
V and the number 8.
Oh, V. Cell A.
V8. Cell V8, if you want to
Just
call
that.
it. It's basically
Cell 8.
Cell V8.
Where's the V?
The V is before the 8.
Okay. Cell 8.
Right. And that's the name of the product. So
Like in salivate?
no, well, I mean cell,
Cell.
basically V, meaning
And why the 8?
The 8 it has to be. Mike is very actually religious, and if you go through almost every single religion, the number 8, which is an inverted infinity, has something to do with most of the religions. It's actually
You
very
said one
beneficial.
thing, though, that got my attention. You said you get very excited, even from the time you're younger.
Mhm.
And, you know, when you're doing something that's greater than self, altruistic,
That's true.
it releases indomitable power.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that's
Yeah.
because you said, I get very excited, you have since you were a young man, about something to do with medicine. So there's your altruism coming out, because you could have been a doctor, right?
Yeah. I mean, I chose not. I didn't have the opportunity to because we were poor. My father was a sanitation man. My mother was a fry cook, and education was there.
Your
so
father was a sanitation man, your mother
New
a
York
fry
City.
cook,
Yep, yep.
and you end up the valedictorian.
Yeah, no.
I gotta say, hey, you're great.
Well, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Okay, so this story was when I was graduating Columbia, and I was getting courted by almost every firm coming.
Sure.
And so Goldman was there, and Goldman made me an offer, and I came home with
They
the
made you
offer.
an offer you couldn't refuse, right?
It's true. So I chose them over all the other firms that were there. And what was interesting is this was 1981, and they guaranteed me $120,000 that year. I ended up making 180. When I came home to show my father, I told him I'm going to get paid $120,000 guaranteed. He said bullshit. I was telling him, he said
Yeah.
bullshit. I don't know my language. And then when I came home and showed it to him, he almost fainted. He said, "Who would ever pay that much money?" Because remember, my father was only making $14,000 a year, and he worked his ass off.
Sure.
And so it was amazing. But that he totally said, "Wow."
Isn't it great that he got to live to know what's
Yes,
done?
and I was very fortunate. He lived to 89, and my mother, who died last year, lived to 92. And if you would ask both of them, and which leads into our discussion, if you ask both of them would they survive that long, they would have said no way. And the funny part, they did because they happened to have a good genetic structure, even though they did everything wrong, which we're about to get into, which would cause problems. So luckily, they were able to survive that. What we're about to talk about today is going to change people's lives in terms of being able to take control of their health using a solution that you do a nutraceutical, and that basically will actually allow them to basically for something less $60 to $70 a month be able to stop chronic inflammation, which according to this,
Inflammation is the number one enemy.
well, what
Right?
what people have to realize is chronic inflammation is, according to the CDC, is causes 90% of the total healthcare spend. This year, the total healthcare spend in the United States alone is $4.8 trillion.
Yeah.
That means we're talking $4.4 trillion is caused by this. Now, what's interesting, the whole medical community up until very recently basically thought that chronic inflammation was a side effect of all the other diseases. The reality is that chronic inflammation is the disease and everything else is a subset of
What
that.
is the problem? Why would God make a product, us, that has this problem with inflammation? You know who lives in town here? Who's the famous singer? Gloria Estefan.
Yes.
Well, Joe Bove was a friend of mine. Joe Bove's son was in an accident. He became a quadriplegic, and then we started the Miami Project for Paralysis with Biaconte.
Oh, so
Remember
the famous,
yeah.
Bart Green is involved with that.
Yeah, so they were up
with.
with me. We started this thing. Now, years later, Gloria, a matter of fact, I haven't had a chance to tell her this, but Gloria
She
is
fell off. She
in a
fell
car
off.
accident.
And then she
So
also
they
fell off the
and they
stage.
found out it was about inflammation.
Yeah.
So when she had the accident, she would have been paralyzed forever. But they went in right away, understanding about the inflammation. Now she walks like a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
So this inflammation thing, why? When you get, they know it's the enemy.
Well,
Why does the body not know to?
Okay, because human beings are basically a bunch of cells. If you let's start with the cell. Each cell is powered by a thing called the mitochondria. The mitochondria think of it as your body's power plant.
Yeah, mitochondria.
Okay, so the mitochondria is very important. When we breathe in oxygen, the oxygen goes into your lungs, and eventually goes through your lungs, morphs through the lung, transfer into red blood cells, which then carry the oxygen to all the cells in your body. As part of that respiratory chain, okay, the mitochondria needs that oxygen in order to produce a thing called ATP. ATP is your energy. Without ATP, you can't move, you can't do anything. So that mitochondria is the source of all our life. In order to feed that life, you need oxygen. However, as part of that chain, there's 4% of the oxygen is garbage, becomes a thing called superoxide, which is called reactive oxygen species,
Reactive.
or free oxygen radical. Now, what you might remember, what is rust? Rust is an oxidation of metal.
Yeah.
It dies.
Yeah.
Well, when that free oxygen radical, if that thing builds up too much, if you get too much garbage, just like if you had a sanitation strike, you have too much garbage, your cell's mitochondria is going to start declining, and three things can happen to your cell if you have too much reactive oxygen species. The cell basically can mutate, become cancer. The cell could go senescent, which means it's not gonna do anything anymore. It just lies there. And the third thing is die. Now, what's interesting is God gave us a natural.
How do you learn all this? I mean, you're a financial guy.
I read.
Voluminously.
In order for me to be the analyst I was and to know the healthcare industry the way I know it, I have to know more, and I read every day. Now,
and now that appeals to your altruism, so that's a turn on
Yes.
for you.
So
So
me-
it's not money first.
No.
It's actually you get a thrill out of the idea of helping somebody.
No, like when I told people is I don't work, I play all day. Because this is my hobby. What are you doing? I said, I'm reading now. The beautiful thing with AI is that now there are AIs which allow me to pull together in seconds all the world's research papers. It summarizes it for me with bibliography so I can go to them. And literally within seconds, I can now know more than, instead of going to
It's amazing.
all these things. And so I now know more than almost every single PhD in seconds because I'm reading all those papers.
Now, you said the guy who created this. Who was he?
We were talking about Apple. We're talking about Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. And he said, if it's not fun after 3 days, I don't do it anymore.
No, I don't believe it. That's exactly what I do.
I've been doing my show for 30 years.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
have to have a love for it.
recall that I ever had one time that I regretted getting up early to come in and do my morning show for 30 years. So my advice to young people is, or anybody who's watching, whether young or old, find that. When my father graduated Syracuse Law School, passed the bar, New York bar the first time, he wrote, my grandmother didn't understand the telegram, my grandfather did. It said, hallelujah, I'll never have to work another day in my life. She didn't understand, my grandfather got it. Because if you find the thing you love, you're going to excel. And that's why you're so good at this stuff.
Well, that was my father. My father, being a sanitation worker, he did it to support the family.
Yeah.
He says, but he had
He
a
didn't
brain.
love it,
But he had a brain. He didn't finish, just like you. He didn't finish high school.
He was probably as bright as you are and had to.
You know what he told me? He said, "You got my smarts, probably more." He said, "You use that to make money." He said, "Don't do what I do." I remember that. He told me that when I was 9.
Don't do what I do. What do you mean?
I mean, manual jobs. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Don't do what I do."
Well, it's like
You have to
economics.
get
Are
it.
you willing to sell yourself for $8 an hour, or $100 an hour, or somebody
And
goes
then-
in and sells a $100 million yacht today, and they'll walk away with a $10 million profit? You know?
That drove me. And the other thing is, I liked winning. I was a very good athlete. I was the best student. So
Quite a combination.
yeah. So what it did for me.
And your best hour might be before you.
Yes.
It often is, you know.
Yeah. I've had my ups and downs. I've made, 50 to 60 million. I've lost 20, 30 millions. I mean, and I lived a great life. I tell people, my hero, the guy I admired, I live a life almost the same way that Derek Jeter did. And my partner and I live a great life. Now, there are guys who have billions of dollars, but look, you don't need to make billions to live it really well. All you need to do is to be independent and free.
And happy.
Yes. And if you're happy and you like what you do and you make enough money to take care of the people that are important to you, then you're living a good life.
Yeah. And it really does come from a place of gratitude. So what's great about it's like that Secret Service guy that you met this morning. He brought up they didn't even have an outhouse for the first 6 years of his life. They had to go to the bathroom in the field up in Kentucky. I mean, so a guy like you, whose father was what did your father do again? He was
a garbage man.
sanitation guy.
We used to say garbage man for New York City.
Yeah, garbage man from New York City, and your mother was a friar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's just, which is a great humble beginning. Yeah. And you learn sometimes there's a lot more love, and it's be careful because of the deceitfulness of riches, because sometimes there's more happiness in a small house than there is in a big house.
They gave me the one thing they could give me, which was ultimate support. Yeah. That enabled me to do well at school, They took care. They let me just concentrate on what I like doing. They
Yeah.
didn't let me do things that I didn't like doing, which is the house chores and things like that. They said, "We'll take care of that. You go. You're our investment. You go take care of what it is."
What sweet, loving parents.
I
huh?
took care of them until the day they died.
Did you have any other siblings?
Yes, my brother actually, he was 5 years younger, and I go back and forth.
This
I
was
spend-
with my brother. I was
Yeah.
5 years old.
I mean, I go back up to see my daughter. I go up once for about a week and a half to Ridgewood, spend 2.5 down here, and God breathes now exists, the greatest thing for Vero
Yeah.
Beach,
Yeah.
and so it makes my life easier.
Now they're going to have international travel here.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. I mean, it's that. You wait till you see how Vero becomes. It really is the Malibu of Florida now. It's really going to become. But let's focus on. Go back to your information thing.
Yes.
Okay, so we have this natural thing called reactive oxygen species.
Yeah.
Now, what God gave us something that's called superoxide dismutase, SOD2,
Superoxide
dismutase.
dismutase.
Okay. Now, why is it named superoxide dismutase? Because the negative thing, the O2 negative, is called superoxide. So basically, this mutates and turns it into hydrogen peroxide. So Pac-Man eats the superoxide, turns it into hydrogen peroxide, and then another thing turns it into water and oxygen.
It's funny because I've always used hydrogen peroxide for a lot of things.
Well, because hydrogen peroxide itself, by itself, can be also bad.
They're saying now that can cure ED,
No.
erectile
Yeah.
dysfunction.
No, yeah, but what's interesting is this: when you do the balance, here's the problem. So the whole thing for chronic inflammatory disease gets down to the war between superoxide and SOD2. Now, interestingly enough, if you have the balance, normal people have a balance. So when you have the balance, you don't have chronic inflammation. Interestingly, what people don't realize is, and there's a very simple test, 35 to 40% of all the people from the day they're born are born with the SOD2 gene that's insufficient. Now, that's very, very interesting because that means from the day you're born, you have chronic inflammatory disease, which means it just keeps accumulating, which means that then leads to all the various.
Is this inflammation, this overweightness that I have?
Obesity is overweight.
How come nobody in my family was ever heavy like this? I think it's the trans fats and
No,
stuff.
well, there's something, I don't know what your gene is, whether it's the variant that's insufficient, the variant that is normal, or the variant that's in between.
Well, I think there's been a crime perpetrated upon the American people, and then Procter and Gamble, they can't sue because we'd have a big sucky noise. Our economy would go down because they spend billions and billions and billions just in advertising every year. And so they couldn't so that's why they made trans fats illegal in New York City. But I think there's a lot more to that crime than we realize. Addicting us all to sugar and carbs.
But let's go back to why that happens. Okay,
Yeah.
So we start with the balance. All right, if you're balanced, then you start life. Now, if you're starting life already in the negative position,
Yeah.
and you're accumulating damage every day that you go by, and the world doesn't know why. By the way, the medical community is not telling you this. This is something that we have put
It's
together.
cutting edge.
This is something that we put together. We started a company, the CEO of this company and myself, whereby we're going to use the test because we have the solution. Because the people that are born with the 40% insufficient gene, if you could find a way to take a supplement or take a drug and raise the SOD2 level inside the cell to protect the mitochondria, you would solve the problem. And
Now, wait a second. Now, you're a thin guy anyway. Do you eat a lot? A lot of pasta and stuff?
Well, I used to eat all that bad stuff. But basically,
stayed thin?
I exercised a lot. But as I went on in my life, I recognized the key to getting overweight is exactly why the Ozempics of the world are working. Okay, there's a thing called the GLP signal. The GLP signal is controlled by the beta cells in your pancreas. They're the things between, if you have too much sugar, it emits the insulin to try and bring it down. That way the sugar doesn't go throughout your body and cause problems. All right? If you miss that signal, if that signal is not being picked up by the pancreas to emit the insulin, you will gain weight and you'll continue. And therefore you will keep missing it, you'll get overweight, and you'll start
And so
getting
what
addicted.
do these gummies, whatever in these gummies, is that...
What's in these gummies is okay, so here was the negative thing. So the world found out about SOD2 in 1940. And they knew that if you ever could raise through supplements or a way to raise the SOD2 naturally, endogenously inside the cell, you would change medicine. Now, that's what all the papers said. The one problem is that the gastric acids that are in your stomach that try to protect you from all the other diseases by eating dirt or bacteria and stuff, so you kill all that, kills all natural enzymes that try to go through. So if you basically take interesting enough, SOD2 hybrid, there's a hybrid melon done from a company in France called Robertet that makes the hybrid melon. And they found this because one day they sprayed it. They were using it to spread. They sprayed it on apples, and they found out for 3 weeks the apple didn't oxidate, didn't turn brown. Says, wait a minute, where did we find it? So they basically went ahead and created a melon, which has the highest level of SOD2 in it, and they basically have the product. So they actually made a product that coated in palm oil. It only lasts 90 minutes though. So it got through the stomach a little bit, but they have tremendous data on this. Now, the CEO of the company that we're talking about, Celivate, symbol is CELV, by the way, and it does trade. Stock's about $3 right now. And when the world finds out that this guy has a patent on a delivery system of being able to take that hybrid melon product, which, by the way, has been used for over 20 years by Cindy Crawford's skin. So she delivered it, so we know it's
Her aunt
very
lives
active.
in this town. She comes here, you know.
So, but by the way, she knew the value of taking this French company's product, but put it on the skin. The problem is, it only worked on the skin, couldn't get into the bloodstream. And if you try to take it through the bloodstream, the gastric acids would get rid of it. The French company eventually got it to go 90 minutes, but not good enough. So the French company supplies the raw material.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Ferraro, the CEO, found a way to look at it and said, if we put this inside a corn fiber, he actually read this in a couple of papers, and he decided to play mad scientist, and he found a corn fiber called Fibersol, which is made by Archer Daniels Midland. It's a great product. It's a prebiotic, but more importantly, it's in all our baked goods. It's very stable. It actually helps you stabilize products. Now, this taken by itself, Fibersol actually is very good as a prebiotic. It actually helps reduce inflammation in your gut. He filed a patent on the combination of the two. Okay, that's very, very important, and that makes this delivery system the first of its type on a nutraceutical basis to deliver natural products that we know work but couldn't get through the gastric acids. So now, for the first time, this company happens to have a patented delivery system, and they're going to create a whole series of products based around SOD2, which is very important.
Yeah.
Okay, and add all the other antioxidants and basically deliver medicines that enable at a low cost to do exactly what is expensive drugs.
Is the FDA going to be a roadblock?
No, because what ends up happening is we're only making claims that basically are out there that reduces, that they allow. But because of social media, there are people like me that can get on there and say, hey, I've been taking this for 6 months.
Yeah.
I started taking it. I've been 155 my whole life. I've been thin most of my life. I've always been in great shape. I basically allow myself to work from this beautiful thing called the iPhone. And I've been working down here, working from the beach or working in a good environment because I can do everything from my iPhone while I'm walking. I walk between 10 and 12 miles a day because I don't like sitting. I probably sit more.
So you do it through that headset you have on.
Yeah. So basically, I'm talking to my office, talking to my clients, wherever I am, it worked beautifully.
Are you sure that there's no stuff being emanated from those headphones, though?
It doesn't.
Well, okay, because the cardiologist that saved my life, he was an African-American man from this area, Dr. Jackson. He saved my life years ago and was a sponsor of my broadcast, but he was always on one of those flip phones. And guess what? His father lived to be 97, but he got cancer around the ear and died very young.
Okay, so I go back to all these things. Let's go back to what I'm saying. Everything starts from this balance, the balance between ROS and SOD2. It's the eternal fight. So therefore, the people that are born in the screwed position, okay, they have what's called the TT allele of the SOD2 gene. And you can get that by just doing a simple sputum test. It'll cost less than $100. We're actually going to be marketing a test like that. And that's the first thing. So those people from day one are ideal targets to taking Celivate's gummy, which basically tastes great. Right, you can get it by going to Celivate.com, CELLEV number8.com. And you go there, and literally for about, $39 for a month for one bottle, you should get two bottles. So basically called $70 a month. You could actually get the same impact that you get with Ozempic and you get with Z-Bound. Now, those are the drugs that are selling, literally made Eli Lilly and Novo worth almost $1 trillion each
Yeah.
in the marketplace. So this particular product is great to go with those. But interestingly enough, what happened with me and my partner, I started taking it. And first off, my sleep was so much better. And I wear one of these Aura rings. The Aura ring is the most fabulous thing because it gives you all this fabulous information on how well you sleep, whether or not your resistance level, where it is, whether you got.
How does it tell you this?
There are sensors in this ring.
And where does it go to your computer?
It goes through the cloud in here, and it reads it. They have algorithms that read it and come back and tell you everything. So
Crazy.
yeah. So with that, I was able to find, first off, that my resistance was better, I slept better, and then I started losing weight. Not only did I lose weight naturally because I started eating less because I felt full, but more importantly, what I found is that I started not wanting desserts. I started not wanting bread. I started liking snap peas. All of a sudden, you find your tastes change, and you eat less of it, but you're eating better. And it's not that I consciously did it; it was just happening by itself. And you also drink less now. And then I started doing a ton of research, and I found that a lot of studies showing that Ozempic and Z-Bound are now, the real reason why they work is that not that they interfere with the metabolic pathway, they do, but the real reason why they do is they are raising, through a different mechanism, the SOD2 endogenously in the cells. Now, when you do that, they interfere with the chronic inflammation. All of a sudden, you start losing weight, and it starts going. So when you stop the cascade, the battle, and you bring back the balance, it starts causing a reverse, and it starts getting you healthy.
Are there any negative?
The beautiful
Because
thing
I tried the Ozempic on it. I went
Okay.
to the emergency
So
room.
here's the problem.
It didn't work with my heart.
Here's the problem. They don't do it directly. They do it through raising the one step earlier, the step that really is in charge of all your antioxidants, which is called the N2RF controller. That thing, when that thing gets stimulated, it makes SOD2, but that also stimulates a bunch of other pathways. When it stimulates the other pathways, it can cause some problems.
You know, I was having fluttering of the heart, and
Right. So
I only took it 2 weeks, and I had to
no,
go off it.
It does. Matter of fact, there was a good article today, but it was saying approximately 23% of the people stopped taking it because of the side effects of it.
I just hope I didn't do permanent damage to my heart.
That's it. However, no, I don't think so. But the beautiful thing about the Salivate, because it works directly on the SOD2 gene and raises the balance endogenously, okay, it doesn't have any of the side effects, and more importantly, you don't lose muscle. The other thing I noticed when I took it, and my partner did the same thing, is that it increased my lean fat ratio, my muscle mass. Even without working out, I actually got cut. And the other thing that's happening is I really feel like I'm fit. I feel like I'm 35 again.
Why is there less danger in taking these gummies that you have?
Because SOD2 doesn't have any major
So
side effects.
you're not really a medicine, you're more of a nutraceutical.
No, we're 100% a nutraceutical.
Define nutraceutical for someone who doesn't know
A
what that means.
nutraceutical is something that is basically generally recognized as safe product that gets delivered. And as long as you're not making claims, the company itself is not making claims saying it's going to cure you or do something like that. So all they're trying to do, like all the nutraceuticals say, is that we reduce inflammation. So they're saying that. But the reality is because we're living in a world today where we communicate to each other and we can communicate through social media, personal references work. Now, what he noticed is he started selling it to athletes, because one of the things about when you're an athlete, okay, you're taking in a lot more oxygen and you generate a lot more superoxide. So therefore, you're putting more stress on your body. So if you need your body, when you get burnt out at some point, you need to recover, and it takes a while to recover. If you could raise the SOD2 endogenously, you'll recover better. So right now, all the nutritionists in the NBA are using this product. Okay, the Cleveland Cavaliers, every single one of the players of the Cleveland Cavaliers are using it, including Donovan Mitchell, who's probably going to end up being the MVP of the league this year. And the reason why they're one of the best teams is because they're not only did they choose well, but the players are actually in better shape because of this drug, and not drug because of this nutraceutical. And so you also got almost all the nutritionists. So it's going through the right people because all the nutritionists recommend it. Matter of fact, if you look at the board of Salvate, you've got a lot of the advisory board is a number of major nutritionists who are well recognized in their field because they're telling you this works. Now, so we know it works because evidence. In addition to that, 7,000 other people. So then when I started doing the work and I found out that in the last 4 or 5 years, almost every neurological disease, which everyone thought was, whether you had OCD, bipolar, whether you had any other psychiatric type diseases, they found that just a battle between reactive oxygen species and superoxide. It's nothing a psychiatrist can help you with. So what you end up with is that just do that. Okay. What you end up with is that you end up with that in the brain. Now what happens is plaque buildup, neurological, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, all caused by the battle between reactive oxygen species and SOD2. So if you raise SOD2, we found people with senility all of a sudden coming back. We found people with Alzheimer's better. We found people with bipolar going away. We found
so how do I get this? How do I get these gummies?
Well, first off, we're going to sell you some. I mean, we'll give it to you. But you can go on to Cellevate.com and buy the gummies.
SCELLEV8,
the number 8.com. You go there, they're easy to buy, they're great, they're very efficient.
So there is a V in there, right?
There is a V.
So
Cell, better if you really want to make it easy, Cell, CELEV, and the number 8.
All you have to do is a cell, and then V8, like V8 juice.
That's it.
V8.
Yeah. And so
it's easy.
It's a fabulous product. I got to tell you, I take 8 a day. It tells you to only take 2, but you should be taking 8. You cannot overdose.
No.
They taste great.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, he just launched, what's interesting, a new product called Slim Cell, SLIM, Slim Cell, CELE. Slim Cell is to be used with the Ozempic and the Z-Bound products. And the reason why you want to do it is exactly this. A lot of people stop taking it. If you're using this, you won't gain the weight back. So it's a better product. It also prevents the muscle loss and the Ozempic face and the Ozempic butt from happening because it prevents the muscle loss. This product also has been proven to do away with cellulite, reduce your waist circumference, and give you a tremendous amount of energy for athletic performance. And so that's.
Are there any stories like what's happening with Ozempic? People losing 20% of their weight. You weigh 300 pounds. That's 60 pounds. That's a lot of pounds.
Well, you lose that weight with Ozempic right away because it just happens faster. This you're going to lose if you take the amount. If you take at least 500 units, which is the 8 that we're talking about, and the new Slim Cell is 700 units. You only have to take 2 of those because it's got more power packed in each one. What you'll find is that you'll reduce almost as much as that, but it'll take a little longer. But you'll do it the right way. You won't be finding your skin folding over. You won't be getting the Ozempic. You won't get any side effects. It really does work. More importantly, your lean fat ratio, you build muscle without having to do any lifting of weights and things like that. Now, obviously, you just can't sit there. You should still do some walking. You got to go along and try to eat, but you're going to end up eating better. You're going to end up eating less, and naturally. And that's what's so great about this. But the key to this whole thing, what makes this company so valuable, is the fact that they've got a patented delivery system to allow natural, vegan-based products for you to take it and not have to worry about going through the FDA because they're nutraceuticals. And actually, if you want, with AI and with your doctor's help, be able to actually take control of your own health by saying, you know something? Okay, SOD2 is the king of the antioxidants. There are 2 princes of antioxidants. It's called glutathione and catalase. And then you have a whole bunch of others, like vitamin C, vitamin D. Well, all those other ones, the difference being is, look at it this way. SOD2 is like a nuclear bomb. It kills millions of free action radicals. Glutathione and catalase, something similar but a lot less. The other ones are like having a bullet. It gets 1 antioxidant each. So blueberries, 1 antioxidant each. They're good, But we're able to combine them all. So basically, what Salivate, that the gummies that they have, not only do they have the SOD2, they got a thing called tart cherry in it. They have a thing from a moral, a orange, blood orange from Sicily, which happens to have the ability to lower your waist circumference and actually do away with cellulite. So we combine it all into one product, and that's the original Salivate formula. Now the new one coming out is going to have a lot more of the SOD2, which basically will generate that balance. And the key to this, to remember about this, is that it brings back the balance that does away with the primary disease, which is chronic inflammation.
So have you talked to many people about this? Can you tell me some stories of somebody that's worked with?
Well, I'll tell you the stories because he's had over 7,000. Beside the athletes,
7,000 what?
7,000 people on this gummy already.
Oh.
Okay, remember, he's been a small company. He hasn't had a marketing budget. So one of the things that my partner and myself have done is we're helping the CEO of this company get more awareness, be able to raise capital, which he's basically just done. And we're going to, by March, he'll be uplisted to NASDAQ. And so that is going to be very, very important. And at that point, starting around the Super Bowl, because we have several athletes that are going to start talking about this and going on podcasts and talking about this product. So this is the first time anybody, anywhere on a podcast or anywhere, has heard about this product. And then we're going to start putting advertisements on CNBC. So this is very, very
Radio
early.
Today is the first
This
time?
is the first time anybody
Come on.
has heard on a podcast.
Really?
The only other podcast I've ever done is that one I showed you where we used the Google thing to basically create a talk. Now, that didn't go anywhere, but that's a cool podcast.
Yeah.
One of these days, you should actually use it to show people how you could utilize it to actually help people do things. AI is taking over. The other thing that's happening is that my partner and myself are writing a book. It's called SOD2, the God Gene. And it truly is the God gene. It is the only gene in the body that you can find that will have impact if you do something to it, if you help raise it endogenously, will stop 90% of the healthcare spend. Now, this is something very important. Bobby Kennedy looks like he's going to become the head of HHS, czar of HHS.
Health czar.
His major thing is making people healthy again. So in doing this, one of the things I found was in 1970, only 13% of the people in the United States were obese. In 1970, the amount of ultra-processed foods was almost 70% lower than what we take today. Okay, and in 1970, the amount of people that had type 2 diabetes was only about 15%.
Well, if you look at America's greatest,
Just make us
videos.
finish this thing.
Yeah.
So the difference, every 10 years, I asked Perplexity Pro how many people had it.
Yeah.
It started taking off throughout the 1980s. It reached, going in 2023, 43% of all Americans are obese. Because 45% of all Americans have type 2 diabetes. And the ultra-processed food is up 60%. Matter of fact, it makes up almost 60 to 70% of our diet. Now, that's not a coincidence. That has got to be the cause. One other thing is, remember what I said, that magic number I told you about, who have the insufficient gene? The insufficient gene, only about 40% of the Americans have it. Now, what's interesting is that it's leveled off at around the 43%. Why is that? Well, people are starting to eat a little healthier. You've got things like Ozempic, which are raising the SOD2. But more importantly, if only 40% of the people have the screwed position, those are the people that are the most susceptible. And the way I found out about this was because of COVID. COVID actually worked by increasing the imbalance that we talked about. It raised your chronic inflammation. So the people that went into the hospital or got COVID, okay, if you were a TT, the person with the insufficient balance, okay, they had a 434% chance of becoming the people that not only went on the ventilator, but they died. They're the ones that have the long COVID. They're the ones that have all the problems that are still existing. So here's the thing you got to worry about. Basically, COVID is now just like the flu, comes every year. If you happen to be that TT person, okay, then you're still susceptible to that. So taking these gummies will prevent you getting that reaction to COVID. Won't prevent you from getting the COVID. It'll make sure that you don't. In addition to that, a large percentage of the people close to almost maybe 50 million people have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea by itself is not a problem. It's what sleep apnea causes. Sleep apnea causes you to stop breathing at night. Every time you stop breathing, you cause a tremendous amount of superoxide to be created. And therefore you create a chronic inflammation problem. And that's when you get all these other diseases. So those 50 million people. So the company announced in the last 2 weeks 2 deals with 2 sleep apnea companies to help use their database to sell the product. And now our sales are starting to take off like crazy. Wow. So there's a company called Vivos, VVOS, on the NASDAQ. We announced that this week. The company basically has these patents, which are very, very important. But Vivos and this company Zippa, which has this device that people wear. So by concentrating on sleep apnea, you basically now are going to help all those people. Okay, if you just look at the numbers, if you get eventually 1 million people, remember, I'm telling you that there's 40% of 330 million people that need the product today, not counting that the other people should be taking it too.
Because
those
like
people need it today.
Something million.
Right. Think about if everybody decided to spend $70 a month. Okay, so you're talking about, I look at this company because of its patent position, because of what it does, and because of the ubiquity of the insufficiency of the SOD2 gene. I'm looking at this company as the NVIDIA of nutraceuticals.
How long will it take off till this happens?
It's starting now. And between now, around Super Bowl, and at the end of the first quarter when it's NASDAQ, the stock should be significantly higher than where it is today. But more importantly, is what we're doing for the people. We're talking just the United States alone, $4.4 trillion is spent and growing on chronic inflammation. If you could take something that you only spend $70 a month and put a big dent in that and make people live better, fine. One of the other big things about that you're able to do when you find out you reverse the cycle of superoxide and overburdening SOD2 is that causes aging. So if you can stop that, you will retard the aging process, or at least go a long way to doing that. So not only will you have healthier older people, but you'll have them more active, and you'll have them. Now, the other thing is that most people don't realize is that there's 43 million people that take Adderall. One of the things that benefits of taking this, it gives you the same benefit of clarity as Adderall without any of the side effects.
What's Adderall?
Adderall is the...
Oh, the sleeping stuff.
No. Adderall is what the young kids do to try to concentrate, to focus.
Oh, okay.
So they get addicted to it. Adderall is extremely addicting.
But does it have a side effect? What's the bad side effect?
The bad side effects, you can't sleep. It causes tremendous reactive oxygen speech. It causes all the damage I just talked about. But it makes you feel like you're Superman. So all the kids are going to school are taking it so that way they become better students.
Yeah.
And there's 43 million of these people. So initially you think you're Superman, and then in about 3 months later, the side effects are just hurting you, and you can't get off of it because they're hooked. So what this will do is it'll stop the addiction, by the way, and more importantly, give you the same benefit that the Adderall is giving you. So there's so many different parts of this. What I found is every chronic disease I went down, it all revolves around this SOD2. If you could raise SOD2, just like the Perplexity Pro AI told me, I put in there, what if you could get the SOD2 by the gastric acid so it got into the bloodstream? Came back and said, you will have totally changed medicine. So that's what this does. And so basically it's that simple. So that's why I call it the God gene, because very simply, we're helping the people that are born with the insufficient, but even people who, now, life happens. So now that's born from day one, but then life happens. So even the people that have the normal balance, so you get all the stresses of life. So you go back, so let's say that you're born into a family that your parents have died, now you're adopted, and you're going through, and somebody, let's say this P. Diddy thing, let's say you got whatever, something P. Diddy did to those people, let's say if he did or not, I'm not sure if he did, but if he did, and he ruined those people's lives, okay, those people are going to be screwed up. And if they're screwed up, that's stress. So if they happen to be balanced, fine, but they're going to be causing more oxidative stress. And it's going to lead to all the other things. So again, what does oxidative stress cause? Plaque buildup in the brain and in the heart. Lipid peroxidation, which takes cholesterol, which by itself doesn't cause your arteries to clog. What it does is it causes the cholesterol to be oxidized, which then builds the plaque, and now you have the problem. And so you not only that, it causes fatty liver, which is one of the most serious, fast-growing diseases.
Sure.
Okay.
Where are you manufacturing this stuff?
Okay, so this is what's interesting. So we import the raw materials, we buy it, and then what we do, there's a plant, which I went to visit the other day with Mike, that's down in Miami Lakes, which is manufacturing the gummies for us and making and cooking it and everything. And what Mike has on the board is he has this guy, Mario Medri, really a genius Italian guy who used to work at Merrill Dow, division of Dow Pharmaceutical, when I used to follow it. And he invented the Nicorette. The guy has invented most of the major cough drops. He understands how to do all these things. So he's our mix master. He's actually helping us, and he's on the board. We also have for a little company, he had a Stella board. So what Mike did before my partner, Dan Walsh, and I found this company, is that he created everything possible to move the company away from what he had before.
Mm-hmm.
The company was called Preferred Commerce. Preferred Commerce did almost all the garden centers for Lowe's. He designed it. Mike had all this ability. The problem is the business just didn't make it. So he had to find a new business. So he changed the business and he brought it into the nutraceutical business. And I got to give Mike credit because he did the transition over 3 years with most of his family money and friends, put the money in, kept it public because he had a lot of shareholders from before that he wanted to help.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden they're making a ton of money.
So how do people get this?
Okay. Again, you go to Salivate.com, you can buy the product. Or if you want to buy the stock, you just call up your broker, or you go to Charles Schwab, or you buy it online. The symbol is CELV. Like I said, it's trading at $3.
I want to hear more stories about people that.
Okay.
So are you looking more to get investors, or are you looking more to get people to take this?
No, I think people should know about it. I mean, the stock will take care of itself because of that.
Yeah.
Okay, but first off, the more people that know about it, the more they're going to save themselves. So I'll give you an example. Everybody who's got Alzheimer's should be on this. Anybody with Parkinson's. I've given this to people who have early onset Parkinson's, 4 or 5 of my friends. They're literally better in days. Better in days. There's one guy who basically,
in a matter of days.
there was one, Mike has got videos of this old gentleman who couldn't walk. And he was basically crippled, and he had Parkinson's and everything else. Within a week, he's got rid of the walker. He started walking, and we got the video. I could even show it to you here. It's amazing. I mean, it's the guy walked. There's a little kid who had a disease, muscle wasting disease, a genetic problem, and he was about 5 years old. They gave him the gummies. Within a week, he was walking, riding a tricycle, and all of a sudden now he's grown up. He's now, I think, about 10, and he's playing with the kids and everything else. He's like a normal kid. Because, again, the interference is you bring back the balance, and all of a sudden you get better.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess you'll come back again in the future.
Love to. And I'll have the full book for you by that time.
Okay.
The whole purpose of the book is to detail this battle that I just went through with you, and to tell people that you should go find out whether or not you're a TT or Leo or not.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think many people will be interested in all the technical, or they just want to know the bottom line is, I'm going to be out there and live a long way?
I'm using AI to make it very readable for the layman.
For guys like me.
You got it.
Yeah, regular people.
Yes, it's a very readable book. You're going to like it because it explains it very much as the way you look at it. That basically the SOD2 gene are like your garbage men that clean your city, but most importantly, they're the ones that bring the balance back to allow people to live well.
Oh, really great. I'm very excited about this.
Okay. No,
I can't wait to start.
Yes, okay. You will have it very soon. And once you start taking it, you'll find that you'll lose the weight naturally and any of the other chronic inflammation you have. And one of the things I suggest you do is find out whether or not which variant of the SOD2 gene you have, because it'll help you figure out your body better.
Where can I get that test?
Okay, so that, if you've ever taken 23andMe,
I did take 23.
okay, the raw genetic data is there. You can actually go in and do it yourself.
Oh, great.
And find out. But in the meantime, though, we're about to launch a very dedicated thing for less than $100, which you just spit in it, and within about 2 weeks, we'll come back and tell you whether or not you have it or not.
Yeah. I found out that I'm part black. I wanted to be Jewish, but
I found out that, the funny part of the situation is, if you look at, just goes back on this test for a minute, because this gene has been around forever.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're looking for when the first man was in Africa and the first woman was in Africa, one segment, part of the population went to Asia, another population went to the Levant and began to move back to Europe, which is where I came from. I ended up in Italy the last two generations, but I came actually through what is now Iran, going to a Greek. So I go back 10 generations according to 23andMe, and I've got some Greek, I've got some Turkish, I've got all these, it's called Anatolian back then, but the last two generations full 100% Italian. All right, so my partner Dan found out that he was not, he always thought he was, you know, Irish 100%. He found out he's half English.
Oh,
Okay, he's half Italian and half Irish and English, and he found out he was able to trace his ancestry to a castle way back when in Ireland, but he was also able to find out that his other side of his family, okay, had, you know, that he knew nothing about, was half English, and he had English cousins and stuff like that. And then his parents said, yeah, we guys still have some English, but it actually was half. So it's
wow.
very, very interesting what he could learn from it. But more importantly, 23andMe gives you this raw genetic test. Now,
Yeah, I had that,
they
yeah.
stupidly don't focus on this test. That raw genetic data is more important than anything else they got. Now, maybe the reason why they do it is because they haven't got a solution. Well, interestingly enough, the solution happens to be there are two, the drugs that Lilly and Novo sell, or buy this product, Salvate, where you don't have to worry about that, and it will be the solution to whether or not you have the wrong variant.
Wonderful.
40% of the people in the United States have that variant from the time they're born. Imagine you're a parent, and for a very easy way you can find out that your child was born with the insufficient gene. You would want to make sure that they grow up not only just taking this, but you want them to make sure that they don't eat ultra-processed foods, that they exercise a little bit, because it's more important that they do that than anything else that they could do.
Well, doesn't the Bible say something about people will want to die one day and they won't be able to? So they're going to find something that's going to make people be able to be impervious to the vicissitudes of life.
Trump's vision of making America healthy again starts with Salvate.
Well, but you got to get to him too, because
we're getting to it.
look how one thing is a lot of people are, who have met with him, whether it's Tucker or whether it's the guy with the the podcast, the famous guy there. They marvel at how young this guy is for 78. He's so sharp.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. Well,
I think he must be taking something.
No. If you look at him, he's definitely on Ozempic or Z-Band. Nobody on
Ozempic?
Yeah, he's on one of those drugs. He's lost weight. He looks great.
Yeah.
Okay, now. He's not on Salvate.
I remember when we were both good looking. He's still good looking.
But I'll tell you that
he looks great.
If you because of Bobby Kennedy, and because we'll be able to get to Bobby when he finds out about this, and Musk, again, I believe a patented nutraceutical delivery system that can allow natural products to come into the body will help make America healthier at a significantly lower cost than what the pharmaceutical companies do.
Okay, the website again?
CELLE, capital V, and the number
capital V. Got to remember the capital V.
You don't have to. It could be small v too.
Okay.
I just do capital V as part of the, the trademark. The V.
Very easy to remember. Cell, CELL, and then you want V8, like V8 Jews, put the two together.
You got it. It's the right way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And look forward to doing
God bless you. Hope you affect a lot of people in a positive way.
I'd love to come back and talk to you about some of the economics and stuff like that.
Let's do it.
Love to do that. Because, the 1920s. And
you're down here for the winter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, this is the mayor of the Airwaves. You and I getting healthy and staying healthy together. Who loves you, baby?
How was that? Good?
Yeah, I think
I thought it went well. Did I sound all right?
Oh, it sounded great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Clarity of speech or diction.